Inside Utah Politics.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics. We do begin this morning with Dr. Elisa Van Langeveld, adjunct professor at the University of Utah and parenting expert, here to discuss the impact of social media on children. So glad to have you with us. Thanks so much for making time for us.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
This is really a big conversation right now. That's why I wanted to bring you on the show to provide your perspective, because we have lawmakers at both the federal and the state level making these proposals as how the government can step in and regulate social media. We have anything from all-out bans on kids proposed to, putting it more into the parents' hands and making sure that they are on board with this. So first off, I really want to get into the impact of social media. You say there are good and bad, so let's start with the bad right off top. What is the biggest concern you have when it comes to children and social media?
Thank you. I'm really excited to talk about this topic, and I'm excited to see our legislators and our policymakers paying attention to what the research is showing for adolescents. And what the research is showing is that the use of social media is really hard and has a lot of negative outcomes. And it actually can have negative outcomes in all domains of development, meaning there are physical outcomes, cognitive, intellectual outcomes, emotional and social emotional outcomes. So it's this tool that we have in our lives that brings with it a lot of risks, but it has a potential to be doing a lot of good. And so we then, as the grown-ups, need to figure out how do we help our children use this tool in a way that minimizes those risks and really capitalizes on the benefits.
Okay, we will dig into that more. Let's first focus in on some of the negative impacts it can have. Let's start with mental health.
All right, so during adolescence, the developmental task that our youth are going through is trying on a lot of identities and figuring out what their role and their sense of self is. And so when they have a high level of exposure to highly curated and crafted messaging in social media, it can really interrupt their own sense of self, their own sense of themselves in the world. We talk about in psychology this idea of an I self and a me self, how I see myself and how I think you see me. And our brains are just really not developed to such an extent that we are able to balance all of these external likes, comments, criticisms from all around us at the same time. So we're asking our children when they go into these social media worlds to kind of be on stage and receive all this external criticism or support and then to perform for it. What types of posts can I post in order to have those likes? And then is that who I am?
Right, and then there's also this element where you see your friends all together having this great time and you weren't there.
Yeah.
What kind of role can that play?
That can have a really isolating role. And in the world that we grew up in, without this level of social media, we weren't aware of what everyone was doing 24 hours a day. So there was much less of a sense of that fear of missing out. And that's really prevalent.
Yeah. What about social skills? What type of impact does it have when you're when you're so deep into social media and not really having that personal interaction? How can that impact a child? So
the social skills come in two different ways. First of all, we learn a different set of social skills online. How do we actually talk to people online? As a university professor, the way students talk to me or email me has changed in the last 15 years. The way they use punctuation, the way they address me or don't, the way they close their emails or don't. So we have these social skills that we learn in the online space. But then we have these social skills that we learn or fail to learn in the personal space. So are we a group of teenagers who are all looking down on our phones, or are we actually looking up and engaging with eye contact and recognizing nonverbal signs of if somebody's doing poorly? Are we just so engaged with our phone that we're actually not practicing those social skills in real time?
And I noticed that you'll have someone you interact with, you're friends with, you're following on social media, but then maybe you'll see them in person and there's something that keeps you from actually interacting with them in person.
Yeah, so being in an online space creates one level of distance. It's almost as if we're always using nonverbal communication. We're always a little bit distanced from people. So then when we're face-to-face, one-on-one, it might feel a little bit foreign and it might feel a little unfamiliar, but really that's how we want to live our lives.
Okay, what else do we need to talk about when it comes to the impact on children?
Some of the negative impacts. What I really want to emphasize is that there's kind of two pieces here. There is the presence of a risk when we hand our kids a smartphone when they are online, but there is also a missed opportunity cost. What are our youth missing because they're spending hours and hours and hours online? Is it the one-on-one social interaction? Is it time to self-assess? Who am I? What am I into? Am I going to go outside? Am I going to pick up a sport? Do I want to practice more music? Do I want to read? But there's an opportunity cost to the time spent online, as well as the present risks that come when we start engaging in smartphones and engaging online.
Let's move into some of the positive impacts. Where do we start there?
Okay, so first, we do see some really meaningful, positive impacts that come with social connections for children who feel left out in the communities where they live. So children who might feel like they're being bullied at school or there's nobody at school that is like them, children in the LGBTQI+ community, that they can go into these online spaces and they can find people that are similar to them or have similar ideas to them, and that can feel really validating. That's a positive. We also, as I work at the university, and a lot of what I do is online, where my university students are coming in and they're taking full university classes online. So the skill to be able to use electronics and media for adult life is starting in our adolescence. So some of the benefits, these are life skills. Helping our children understand how to create relationships online, maintain relationships online, receive assignments and education online, and be accountable online are life skills that we can start in adolescence so that when they come to the university at 18 or 19 and they sign up for my online class, they are able to do that and know how to communicate with me, how to find things online, and know how to have those online engagements. So I don't think we need to say, don't get online until you're a grown-up, but I do think we as parents and as the grown-ups around us need to help prepare our children so they can use this tool that's a really fantastic tool for their adult life.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about the legislation we're seeing. On the federal level, we see Representative Chris Stewart of Utah. He's proposing an all-out ban for anyone under the age of 16, says they just shouldn't be on media, social media altogether. Here at the state level, we have a couple of bills that are moving through the state legislature. They're looking more at putting control into the hands of parents and really targeting the algorithms that are targeting children. What do you make of the legislation you're seeing on the table?
I feel excited that the conversation is starting, and I feel excited that we're starting to look at what the research shows, and that not accessing social media until age 16 is very well supported in the research. It makes sense that that is a guideline that we're looking for. Some things that concern me in the legislation are maybe the unintended consequences of the mechanism for doing that. Some concerns such as if the online companies are required to verify the age of a child, we are then going to have to disclose a lot of private information, which is something that active parents are telling their kids not to do. Don't put private information like your age or your birthday online. So there are some privacy issues there in those mechanisms. But so what I am excited about is that we're having this conversation. It's definitely a problem and an opportunity for us to create some policies that can support children. I'm concerned about some of the mechanisms and the unintended consequences that might occur.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the role of parents in this situation. So let's go ahead and get into that. What tools do parents need to have to effectively guide their children into more of this positive that you talk about in social media?
Excellent. So when we are trying to prepare our children for something that might be risky, there's kind of 3 stages. Well, there's 4 stages. Okay. First, we start at like a cocooning stage where we just protect our children. They have no access. And this would be in the early years, ages 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, no access to social media. And then we start moving into an awareness stage. So in the early teen years, our kids know about social media, and parents should be involved talking to them about them. How do I use social media as your mom? Let's watch some TikToks together. And then we start moving into an avoidance stage. You know that it's there and you might be interested, but we're going to avoid that until we're at a certain age, 13, 14, 15, 16. And then we move into the preparation stage. I have now prepared you so that when you get online, you're going to be prepared what to do when things start to feel really bad, or you find content that makes you feel really uncomfortable or is inappropriate. But we kind of are preparing our children throughout their lives so that they enter adulthood knowing how to use these tools.
Those can be some tough conversations to have at times, especially when you talk about the content that isn't suitable for children. They may not want to come to their parents for that. So any tips on how to maybe break the ice there?
Yes, this should be an ongoing conversation. As with so many other things that we ask and want parents to talk to their children about, alcohol use, substance use, sexual activity. And the goal that we're looking for, particularly in adolescence, is what's called spontaneous self-disclosure, which means parents aren't grilling and interrogating their children, but they have multiple opportunities where they are having conversations with their children and they're checking in about their online activity so that when something happens, they're ready to have those conversations. It's ongoing, it's continual.
Okay, that makes sense. Really fascinating conversation, and I appreciate your insight. Very helpful. Thanks for being here with us this morning.
Thank you. It's an important topic.
It is, no doubt. Thanks so much. Okay, still to come. As community